Pope Francis's third encyclical is some 300 pages long. In it, some important lessons and ideas to build a better world. The editor at Crux, John Allen, joins us now to break it all down for us. And John, Fratelli Tutti is very long. Many won't read it. The title literally means all brothers. So what is the meaning of the encyclical? What's the gist?
Well, Christine, I have with me the printed Italian version of the encyclical. You can see this is a pretty thick tome.
Wow.
287 sections in all. And so any attempt to boil this down to like a single idea or a single soundbite is obviously going to be ridiculous. But in broad strokes, if we can focus on the forest rather than the trees, I think this is the Pope trying to give us an X-ray of the situation, the global situation, as he sees it in the early 21st century. And frankly, it's fairly bleak. He sees a conflict between two currents at loose in the world, both of which he thinks are fatally flawed. Neoliberal individualism on the one hand, which translates into things like free market economics, laissez-faire capitalism, also radical secularism, and on the other hand, angry nationalist populism, including the political forms of national populism that we see around the world today. And he sees a great global conflict between these two forces emerging. And this is if you like, this is the Pope's Hail Mary pass. It is his last-ditch attempt to offer an alternative, a third way, if you like. And that third way is human fraternity. But I will tell you this, I think it is one of the most dramatic messages we have heard from popes in quite some time, and one of the most fascinating.
All right, you say people in the U.S. might read into certain things that the Pope wrote, like when he talked about an exchange of charges and countercharges, debate degenerates into a permanent state of disagreement and confrontation. Sounds like he's talking about the U.S. presidential debate. And he also criticized...
Yeah, it's really hard not to hear Trump-Biden in that,
right? And he also criticized today's social media culture and social aggression, which some might think is a reference to President Trump. Is he referring to these U.S. things, or are we reading into it too much?
Well, look, we're Catholics, so the proper answer to almost every question is both and, right? So here's the deal. Pope Francis began writing this encyclical more than a year ago, even before the coronavirus erupted. Well, I mean, we knew there would be an election in the United States, but it hadn't really taken shape yet. Further, popes always have a global vision. They're never talking just to one place or one people. So it would be a kind of an act of arrogance, frankly, on the part of Americans to think, oh, he must be talking about us.
Right. Now, this was also the first trip outside of Rome for the Pope. It was very different. Only about 24 people in the chapel for Mass. They were socially distanced, wearing masks. Talk about how different this visit was because of the pandemic. And do you think Francis will travel more now?
You know, my wife and I were in Assisi on Saturday when Pope Francis was there. 400 feet away from the Basilica of St. Francis, you would have had no idea the Pope was in town. There were no crowds. There were no banners. There was no boisterousness, all of those things we associate with papal travel. Of course, Pope Francis wanted to keep this a strictly private trip, and I think in some ways this may set the tone in the short run for the kinds of papal trips we see in the future. We may not see any big crowds. We may not see any big public liturgies. We may not see any huge photo ops, with flags waving and bands playing, the kinds of things we associate with papal travel. We may see something quieter, more behind the scenes, more targeted, and more limited.
All right, it's affecting everything, even the Pope. All right, John Allen, the editor at Crux, thanks for being with us.
You bet, Christine.
If you're watching Currents News on YouTube, be sure to hit the subscribe button and then click on the bell to get instant updates about all of our newest content, because we are putting your faith in the news.